Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the Saturday edition as we take a look at the week ahead to inform you, to help you see some stuff that's coming at us, and also help you in conversations with others in terms of adding to insight to the speculation. We have to admit, whether we like it or not, or whether we're caught up in all forms of entertainment and modern media, the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce wedding obviously is the biggest event really on the entertainment, and probably on the cultural side. People might want to roll their eyes and say, well, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, or, I'm not into football, so much for Travis. The fact is, we need to be able to sit back and look at what's happening in the culture around us, and the culture in which we are a part, of which we're a part, and the culture in which we hope to be influencing. This is a gigantic story. The fact that in modern history, with all of the technology available for us to be looking and speculating and spying, and nothing goes unseen, they've been fairly successful in pulling this off, the biggest wedding really of the decade at the very least, and doing it without even making an announcement of it. All eyes watching the things that will be coming out in the week ahead. First of all, in the immediate future, the immediate days and even hours, even as you're checking out media today and other sources, all the guests, of which they were purported to be about 1,000, were told that there's no recording allowed. Nobody's allowed to bring in their phones, nothing like that. They had to sign declarations of non-disclosure, that they wouldn't tell anybody what was going on. And we all know that that's going to last for about 2.3 nanoseconds. Everybody will be out there, some saying they were there, some saying they weren't. You're going to see stories, you're going to see videos of actual depictions of the wedding that are AI generated, that didn't even happen. And I think this is all planned. It's all to add to the ongoing speculation and to keep the discussions going for days and weeks, who knows, maybe even years. Anyway, so watch for the stories. One of the big stories is going to be, is the story that you hear, is it real? Did it really happen? There's something that's even bigger than that. And I'm not saying this prophetically. I'm saying this is a possibility. I'm not saying it as a prophecy. For those of you, the reason I say that is, for those of you who read Old Testament scriptures, you'll know that prophets who come out and say, here's my prophecy, and then it doesn't come true, then other people are allowed to stone them. And no, I don't want that to be happening. But there is no question there's going to be a cultural effect on this. We've seen for years there's been a discussion on so-called traditional foundations, traditional structures, and is it time for them to move on? Even structures such as the family. We've seen for years the reports on declining birth rates, on delayed family formations, and I'm making a suggestion here. I'm saying there's a very strong possibility, because of the cultural impact. You watch for it, you're going to see an increase. I believe this is possible, an increase in the percentage of people getting married in the year ahead. Certainly the year ahead, it may go further than that. That could be not 100%, but certainly largely attributed to this particular wedding, as fans that have stuck with Taylor Swift, for instance, for years, and have kind of lived their lives, unfortunately, somewhat vicariously with hers. You're going to see people more and more making the decision, you know what, rather than just cohabitating, rather than just living in a series of relationships, let's jump into marriage. Watch for that to increase. Don't get mad at me at saying this. I'm just talking about the effect that this is going to have. Certainly, the effect of Gen Z, and even on millennials, in terms of, so anywhere people in their teens up into their 30s, you're going to see an effect on this. There's been discussions, as we know, in society about stability and peaceful family formations and peaceful communities. I do believe in some ways this is going to have some positive effect relative to that. Let's see. So watch for the immediate stuff in the week ahead, and then further. Now, contrasting this week, keep watching for the funeral coming up in Iran. I've been talking about this for a while. This is going to have a profound effect. You've got Ali Khamenei, who was killed, as we know, back in February on one of the bombing attacks when the U.S. was going after the military nuclear structures of Iran. And so what's going to happen is, everything was certainly within the regime, people will be focused on, they'll be remembers of the leader that some of them saw as the great restorer of religion in that area, and others even living in Iran see him as the great monster, the person responsible for the deaths year after year of tens of thousands of innocent people, the person that was responsible for the exporting of terrorism around the world, the funding of groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the funding of the Houthis, the funding of Hamas. So the two sides, there's going to be some collision in terms of memories and what to watch for. What's going to happen now? Is this going to mean a consolidation of power among those who were the admirers and let's say the people on the significant and far left in the regime who want to continue total control, who want to continue the mission of destroying Israel, annihilating 6 million Jews, 8 million Jews, because they say that's part of their religious calling? Or is it going to lead to some kind of reform? Are people going to see this is the end of an era? And if I had to bet on this, it's a scary bet to bet on the fact that the reformers can win because the regime is so deeply entrenched. Anybody who steps out on the streets, even if they wanted to support the attacks that were happening on their own nuclear structures, are immediately shot or hanged. Women will continue to be subjugated. I'm just saying I'm a little nervous about the powers of reform taking over, but it's all going to be crystallized around this funeral. Watch for it. Watch for increased statements of avenging and revenging. Well, the bigger story of that, of course, is even as I broadcast right now, this is the 4th of July, and in the United States, that's huge. It's 250th anniversary. And we see a lot of stories that have emerged over the week and continue, interviews that are done on the street or in businesses or on the beaches about that reveal that really Americans maybe do not know that much about their history and their formation, as people think, if you don't know where you've come from, then you have no idea where you're going. And this is causing all kinds of consternation. Do the people in general remember the foundational concepts that made the nation strong in the first place? Let's see, that debate is going to be continuing. We shouldn't be just surprised to see that certainly in media, the debate on that point leans to the left, increasing in ascendancy. We do get stories which may be encouraging to some about young people, returning to faith, people returning to the Catholic Church, people returning to growing numbers of evangelical churches. It's a little quieter. The shift to the left is ongoing, and in terms of raw numbers, it still outweighs significantly those who move to more of a centrist position. And it shouldn't be a surprise because the institutions of the state, the institutions of government, are, in terms of funding, they fund the institutions which track people to the left, which present ideas and philosophies and psychologies which would be significantly to the left, which would be away from concepts about believing is in fact there a God, is there a personal God, is the Bible true? The irony is that people on the left and the right, the working people of the world, fund consistently and conspicuously and overwhelmingly all of the philosophies of the left. They do it through the school system, they do it through the education system, and then people wonder why is there been a moving away from some of these foundational truths. So I'm not overly confident. I have faith, but strictly on the numbers, not in the near future confident about this shift as now that the celebration, the celebration's 250th will continue, of course, for the year, but are people celebrating just what's happening now, or are they celebrating the fact that the prosperity and the economic power and strength of the United States is a result of some of the foundational truths and trusting in God and supporting one another and having strong communities and strong institutions like churches and synagogues, etc. Let's see where it goes. The debate in Canada certainly going to be heating up relative to what's happening in the province of Alberta. They have got agreement from the federal government on the pipeline project. We talked about that last week, and the emerging groups. Watch for it this week. As I speculated and talked about yesterday, we got very specific on all of the opposition to the pipeline that's going to continue to emerge. So watch for that debate to continue. I do think it's possible that those who are seeing that the exporting of refined, for instance, liquid natural gas product is going to be beneficial to the world, is going to be able to help countries like India, which significantly burn dung, as we talk about. People don't realize this isn't, we're not talking about just little groups of people sitting around stoves burning dung, which is bad enough, but dung is used and burned on a huge scale in India. Huge health problems with that, huge environmental problems with what goes up into the atmosphere. Advanced liquid natural gas can be a real assistance in that in terms of lowering global emissions. As we know, we're going to watch, and we're going to watch for the debate this week in Canada continue to emerge among the groups who are opposed to energy development and those who are not. We'll see which side wins. Again, the side that we seem to fund more and more are those who have backed many of the scientific theories about global warming, which have now been disproved. But still, the thought among most young people and many young people is, in fact, that we are going to see the destruction of the environment and things continuing to move down, and everybody dying in global warming or global freezing or global raining, whatever you might want to be. We'll watch for that debate to continue through the week. Well, in the US, as we now move past the July 4th weekend, we're going to see really things. Usually July 4th, usually as the summer comes along, things politically tend to ease off a bit. People are focused on vacations and getting out in the sun and doing whatever they do in the summer. I'm saying that this July 4th, watch for political conversations to actually increase in intensity. I don't see them backing off because we're heading into, in the United States, what they call the midterms, and many elections are going to be decided. And the winning people who are going, the party that wins in the midterm and the party who wins in the Senate, not just in the House of Representatives, if that is on the Democratic side, if the Democrats win, you're going to see virtual stopping of any of the plans of the Republicans. And under Donald Trump, you may even see him impeached. You're going to see increased investigations. And these elections coming up. So look for more and more people. Every statement now a politician makes, every action is going to be increasingly focused on just what's going to happen in the midterm elections in November. We'll flip over to Europe, and the immigration question there continues to rise. Watch for that this week, because more and more countries are in fact moving back. In the EU, we see they're backing away from widespread 100% open immigration. They're seeing what happens when you bring people into the country in huge numbers, which basically are opposed, not even aligning with your values, but opposed with the values you have relative to freedom, relative to economic strength, even relative to religious expression. It seems religious expression in many countries in the EU are coming more and more to the forward of being those Islamic, let's say, portrayals or expression of religious overwhelming societies, whether it's the mass prayer meetings that take place on the streets or whatever these other situations are. Watch for the EU continuing discussion. They're also going to be embroiled in the discussion on energy. Here's a situation, as you saw this week, I announced what has been reported widely, huge number, big increases in Tesla because of the massive increase in numbers of electric vehicles going especially to Europe. And that may be actually a helping hand to those who are wanting to see pipeline increasing and refined oil and energy projects going to Europe. Europe, as we know, we've talked about a lot of times on the show here, continually held hostage by President Putin. He sells all of his energy products, oil and other products, to keep Europe warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And here there's been this awful irony, tragic irony of European countries funding the war, funding Putin's war, funding the killing of Ukrainians because they don't have the power to develop their own energy. And when they import energy, people get mad and the political thing shifts. The EVs, which means there would be fewer cars using energy, may in fact help the argument that pipelines and pipeline development, or even bringing in energy products from places like Canada, can actually be helpful, because there'll be less gas being burned in vehicles and more being expended to help people stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. We'll watch for that. In Asia, Keep watching because China is not visibly but approaching some panic concerns about what's happening to their economy. I'm going to make a bit of a prediction here, a possibility, let's say, not a prophecy. What China has found in the last 50 years or so is that by allowing what they call, what I'm calling controlled free enterprise, controlled capitalism. It started back. I'm going to take this back easily 60 years. And when the government looked around and then they said, first of all, for instance, to areas like Shanghai, they developed that as an economic region. They basically said to the people in the Shanghai region, okay, look, tell you what, we're going to let you be innovative. We're going to let you invest. We're going to let you enjoy even profits. You're still going to be under a communist regime. We will still kill you if you dare to question us, but let's see if this free enterprise and innovation thing works. And of course, it did. Shanghai, of course, exploded into becoming one of the most vibrant economic regions in the world, lifted poverty rates, everybody having the possibility to buy homes. And so China, of course, spread that around the country from region to region. That put them in conflict. Don't think it's just Canada or the US or Europe with these left right conflicts. That has put them in conflict. And the old hardliners have been sort of in control of things, but watch for China. They're going to take, the realization is going to hit. They have to allow innovation. They have to allow entrepreneurial development if they're going to continue to be prosperous, if they're going to continue to have companies that will raise money that they can tax, and the taxes can then support the people who want to retire and can support healthcare. Folks, you can't live and you can't have a prosperous, healthy society if you don't have a prosperous and healthy economic environment. And yes, that does mean, you know what, some people are going to get wealthier than others, and people are just going to have to adjust with that. You can take it back to the days of the development of the railways, whether it was in Europe or even look at the US. The people who were the entrepreneurs, the people who were out front in those development, the people who were risking all their investment in building railways, yes, they became very wealthy, but millions of others also became wealthy because now you had these two little ribbons of steel that you could put train cars on. The products that the local business person was making could now be shipped to other areas and be sold. The agriculture products that the farmers were growing could now be shipped all across the country. So in the process of society, of overall a society becoming healthier and more prosperous, folks, we just have to get used to the fact that that means some people are really going to get super wealthy, but overall, everybody's condition will improve. And that's the battle that's going on as we look around the world. Certainly on the China side, that's going to continue to be the battle. And look for the battle, I guess we could call it, with a number of countries. Canada is certainly in the forefront here, and the United States. A number of, as let's say, left-leaning governments take sway, the development or the restriction of religious freedom becomes even more prominent. And the more that religious freedoms are restricted because people don't like the concept of God, you remember you're also restricting freedom of speech. When you restrict freedom of speech, you're restricting the free flow of ideas. When you don't have a free flow of ideas, you don't get the economic and technological breakthroughs that tend to be positive for humanity. It all goes back to that. So watch this week for continuing discussions, especially in Canada, where it's now going to be people have been served notice, especially on religious expression, especially in churches and synagogues. If you read certain scriptures that upset other people, those people who get upset can have you charged criminally. So watch for developments on that. And it really brings to the question, as we look at all these items, there's a biblical reference that says, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? What can people who want things just to be going along in a right kind of way, what can they do? We're going to find out. Watch for these developments in the week ahead. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. And to our American friends, really enjoy your July 1st, 250 anniversary, a remarkable, remarkable history. Enjoy. Bye for now.